Caulking is flexible and it is paintable, but it's not sandable. Take the spike inside, pierce that film that's at the top. You're trying to keep your gun clean a little bit. Caulking can really make a bad paint job look pretty good. Once all your nail holes and stuff are filled on the wall with using spackle or filler, what you want to go around and do is look around where you might need some caulking. Caulking is different than your average mud for use on drywall. Caulking is flexible and it is paintable, but it's not sandable. Really what you want to use this on is places where two surfaces are coming together and therefore are going to want to shift around and move. You want to put caulking at the joint so that it can continue to be flexible, but it can still be paintable and look great. Caulking can really make a bad paint job look pretty good if you do it well. So let me show you a few spots where we're going to use some caulking. This room is actually in great shape, and little things like this are probably going to get filled with another coat of paint. Clean it up in there, throw some primer, and by the time you top coat it, that's going to look great. But over on the other side here, you're going to see that these corners are starting to crack. There's a crack here developing across the two jam extensions that we're going to want to put caulking into. When you're cutting the nozzle for your caulking, what you're going to want to do is make sure that it's not too big. They have these little markings on the side of them most of the time that show you what a 1/4 inch, 5/16, and up at the top there's a 1/8. I like to, for the most part, especially when there's small cracks like this, is make sure it's as small as possible. The worst thing that can happen is if you're starting to put a bead that's too thick and you go and you try to smooth it out, and all you do is end up with ridges on all corners of everything. So start off with a small bead. If you need to extend it, you can. So cut that open, stick the spike inside, pierce that film that's at the top, and try to keep your gun clean a little bit, right? So put that back. This is a dripless caulking gun, so it has no release, which we swear by, and we tell everybody that they have to go and get them. So now that it's locked and loaded, I've also got a wet rag here because caulking, for the most part, which makes it great, is that it's water soluble. So though you can't sand it, what you can do is when you put it into the corners and you wipe it down with your finger or push it in with some sort of tool, if you make that product wet on the surface, it's not going to smear across everything. It's going to have a nice even finish, and you'll be able to tuck it into spots that you want to get it into. So come take a look at this. Now you can see that the caulking has filled in that crack, and the bigger the coating of caulking that you use, probably the stronger it's going to be. But we don't want it to look messy. We don't want it to look rounded. We don't want to make it look like we've created this arc at the bottom there. So I tried to put in as little as I can, and it looks like I need to put in a little bit more here up the side of this casing. So I'm going to finish doing some caulking around this casing, and I'm going to do it around some of the other spaces in the room, looking for small spots around the side of casing, around the side of baseboards, all that. As we continue to find more places where we're going to put some caulking in, like you can see in this molding right here, you can see that there's starting to become a little bit of a gap on the side of the molding, and over here you can see it even more. So I'm going to be putting some caulking in there, but before we do put the caulking in, we want to make sure that we get this sanded down a little bit. Trim work, it has a little bit of a higher sheen to it, so you want to give it a scuff sand before you put any primer on it. Primer will probably stick to it regardless, but it gives it a much better chance at being smooth and also sticking to it if you give it a scuff sand first. So I'm going to sand it before I put the caulking on so that when I sand it, I don't peel off all the caulking that I do. We'll be able to make it look extra fresh. Well, hopefully we will. Otherwise, this video would suck.